Yeah. Hey guys, how you guys doing? Today I have one of my favorite people, lyricist and member of one of my favorite bands, Bedard. How you doing, dude?
What's going on, Nate?
So
Great.
where are you at right now?
I'm in Boston. I'm in my kitchen. This is the first time I've ever done a podcast interview in my kitchen. Usually I find a spot in my bedroom, but they're drilling outside my window, so I came to the other side of the house.
Oh shit.
I'm
How's
cooking.
that? How's Boston right now?
Huh?
How's Boston?
It's okay, man. I mean, the weather's been incredible, and it feels like slowly things are sort of starting to come back to life a little bit.
Yeah.
As
It's it,
odd as that is, because the COVID numbers are like fucking nuts if you watch the news, but the bars are opening. There's restaurants that you can sit in now that a few months ago you couldn't sit in.
are the numbers going up in Boston in particular, or are they just
I
kind of
can't tell you that. I can just say that, I check in every day and it's like 100,000 new cases, which seems
it,
horrifying.
yeah,
But
it's like I kind of try to keep an eye on it, and it seems like major cities, like some places like Boston, Seattle, places that are a little bit more understanding, are the numbers seem to be kind of static or going down. But like,
because we're taking masks seriously, we're doing the small things anyway.
yeah, but you go to some of these cities like Arizona, like places in Arizona and fucking Texas is just skyrocketing.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So as a kid, some of my first shows, one of my first shows was a Bane show. And I think it was Bane, Nerve Agents, Saves the Day. I'm trying to think who opened up that show. Someone opened up. But
So
for the
98, right? Had to be the summer of 98.
yeah, I was a fucking child. but
Cool.
for the most part, Bane has been a consistency in my life for a very long time. It was a very it never faded away as far as you know watching Bane and the excitement to watch Bane. It was incredible to see that, see it grow. But as a kid, I always wondered, like, watching these bands that I grew up and loving, how did they get to where they're at as far as involvement in hardcore? And I guess the most particular question is, how did you get involved in hardcore? Growing up in you grew up in Massachusetts, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I grew up in the city, Worcester, which I'm sure you know.
Yeah, yeah.
40 miles
So, like,
west of Boston. Not a big city, but not a small city. And
so
it
what?
had all the city shit going on. There were skaters, there were breakdancers, there were kids from different cultures. And yeah, I guess I was 15 in like 85 and just found dudes with a skateboard. He had a big brother who had a cool record collection. And yeah, I just fell in love, finally fell in love with music, fell in love with punk. And then that led to sort of meeting more kids that's explained to me how easy it is to make a band that you
Yeah.
don't even know how to do anything. You can just do it.
What would you say was like one of your like first few shows that you attended?
The first show that I ever saw was Black Flag that year in '85, the
That's
Slipin' In tour in Boston. But it was like fucking 6 months before I found somebody that could get me to a show. I was so ready to go to a show, and there was just nothing. Everything in Worcester was 21 plus at that time.
yeah.
And none of my friends had cars. So there was this, I swear to you, Nate, I think it was less than a half a year, but at that time it felt like forever where I was ready to go to a show and just couldn't get to one. And finally, I met some 16, 17-year-old kids and we started making the trip to Boston to see shows. And then very quickly after that, we started forming bands and just doing our own small shows in
Yeah.
Worcester. Yeah.
That's awesome, because it's like it's kind of usually sometimes the other way around, where like for me, someone dragged me to a show and I was like, what the fuck is this? Like coming from a neighborhood that's like mainly like Chicanos and
Yeah.
pretty much colored community, is like, you see like punk rock and hardcore, you're like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
But yeah, well, one of those first places that I got dragged to was showcases, was some Bane shows, so it was cool to see that.
Tell
Uh,
me about that, being young and sort of. So, did it just click right away? Like, did you just kind of know, whoa, this is different, or did it take some time? like the repetition until it finally started to make sense to you?
You
Like,
see,
how was it coming at the culture, not feeling already pulled to the culture? That's fascinating to me.
I think what helped is that when I was a kid too, I skated. So it was like, I would get like, the 4-1 comps, and they would always have like punk bands on there. And in the early 90s, I got into a lot of the Epitaph catalog,
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, like, I like this and this, like, I think one of the first CDs I ever bought was that Offspring, the Smash record.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. And and then so when I got to see bands in that kind of aggressive nature, I was like, holy shit, this is sick. And the cool thing about California, which is like I noticed is not really prominent in other places of the country, was that we have backyard shows in every fucking city, and that's because weather permits for it. So like, we didn't necessarily have to go to venues or clubs or bars, but like some dude was like, yo, I have a show in my backyard, and it was, any time of the year it's accessible,
Yeah.
I think
The
that's
funny thing with LA is it is literally aesthetically, as far as what it's like to watch a hardcore show, it's better than anywhere else in the world. It's the number one spot for how crazy a show can look as far as reaction in a crowd of kids just losing their minds.
yeah.
We have good here. New York City is good. There's good places, but when I was at Showcase for the first time, at that Rev Showcase that we just got to jump on and play a few songs, it's better than 1,000 in my eyes, and I believe Battery were on that. That live response that I saw kids like just doing full front flips off everything and just losing their minds still stands to me as nothing has ever compared to the way an LA show that is just going full on, everyone losing their mind. There's nothing like it. Like, I can't imagine seeing that and not being pulled to want to go again.
Mostly Showcase too. I was like, dude, I have a picture as I think I was like 15, and I was like, it was like I was literally on top of people, on top of someone, and I was holding onto your shoulder so I don't eat shit. I gotta send you that picture. It's fucking one of my favorite pictures.
The craziest shit still I had ever seen. You guys your kids go harder than anyone else.
Let's talk about that. The last show you guys played in LA, which was at Union, dude.
Yeah.
It was so fucking hot that I just remember the floor was just a puddle.
I
was like, this is fucked.
Yeah, it was fucked. It was like too hot, too hard to move. It was so emotionally heavy for me. I was not ready to like really be saying goodbye to it. And honestly, I don't want to be bitter. This is fucking 4.5 years later, but it was heavy for me not being a Chain. There was just something every step of the way felt wrong to me that this was not all ending.
Was it because Chain was booked or what?
All amongst like the booking agents and you got to sell this. It was all business shit that I was very bad at staying involved in, and it was a tide that I tried to fight against because it just seemed fucking crazy to me that we wouldn't be ending at the Chain. We started at the Chain and we did not play there. It was like our fucking second home, and it had to do with like, well, first we want to sell this place out. It was like a real bunch of bullshit.
And it's awesome to hear you say that because there's always that nature of like, there's times where we've done tours and like, hey, you could get paid more to play here. But for us as bands, like, I have a connection to this space or venue. I want to play here. Like, it's totally fine if I make less money, but it's like, this is where the kids go. This is where I've grown up going to shows, and it's like, and it's every time, like for me, for example, every time we play San Diego, it's like I always want to play Che Cafe because it's like I went there as a kid and I played there, or the Soma, which is like 3 times the size, and it's just like, and for me too, because I was around. I was like, fuck, like I actually work for the venue you guys played at, which was the Observatory, and it's as much as I love that venue, it just there's a nostalgia behind Bane playing Chain Reaction, and I was like, fuck, that sucks,
For me, it sucked. I've been bitter about it ever since. Now I feel real salty about it because what Chain's going through, and I just wish that we could like shoot out there real quick and do a benefit for them, and then I could
Yeah,
check that off the list of like, oh, we get to say our goodbye to Chain. But
yeah.
how are they doing? What's going on? What's the latest
So
with
I
that?
think from my understanding, I just what I've been told and hearing from friends, you know, a bunch of friends did shirts, the Violent Gentleman dudes and like Jesse from Stick to Your Guns kind of did a huge push. And from what I understand is that they able to raise enough money to cover for an extent of time,
Okay.
which was their goal, which is awesome. But the scary part is that, you know, if you really sit back and think about it, is that, you know, 10 months, this thing still might be going past 10 months.
Yeah.
And that's
We're
the
going to be the last in line as far as things that people are comfortable letting happen again. Hardcore shows will be the last thing that is like.
oh yeah. So right now it's just like it's just all just hoping that, you know, stuff gets
Well, we're
better.
going to do a short term. Hopefully, other bands will step up and maybe we can get them through a few more months, and then
Yeah.
eventually we'll be able to start doing benefits like directly.
Yeah. I think I think for people in Southern California, it's one of the last venues as far as like, you know, showcases gone. You know, down south they have some. Hold on. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So for some reason my video went down. What happened? Okay, there. No, but a lot of the venue spaces that, you know, we grew up going to aren't there. So Chain being one of the few that are still standing, I think there's always going to be a support system there for them, and I hope they know that, you know, like, you know, the guy that actually owns the venue, Andy Sorrell, is actually one of is a dude that played in a bunch of our friends' bands and like, you know, grew up playing shows there. So it's pretty cool, you know, like that. I think he hopefully he knows that there's people that are still like, hey, we're still here, you know.
Good. I would
But
hate to. The loss of that venue would be immeasurable.
oh yeah, man. But just want to kind of go back and step back into the history of Bane. Bane has been a band since what, like mid 90s, 95, 94?
Yeah.
So by the time you guys stopped, what was that? What?
21 years.
It's a long fucking time.
Ridiculous amount of time to do a hardcore band. Silly.
So how did Bane become to be a band? Because for the most part, there's a core group of you guys that were consistently in the band. But like
3 of us that were there in the beginning and in the end, pretty much. Yeah, there was 3 of us, and really we went through 2 drummers. Like bass players came and went.
Yeah.
There were a lot of them, but really we were. I mean, I guess we were a 3 drummer. Actually, now that I think about it, it was 4 drummers. But there were 3. Once we started touring, the first few years of Bane, we were very much a side project for Converge.
Yeah, remember that.
He was busy all the time, and we played local shows. And like 10 Yard Fight would have to come and pick us up. We didn't even have a van. They would like drive to Worcester, throw us in their van, and take us on a weekend just so that we could get the fuck out of our own backyard.
Yeah.
And that went on for a couple of years, for 96, 97, and then in 98, our first CD came out. Equal Vision put the CD out. We had a label, and we were able to do our first tour with Saves the Day that summer. So really, like the first couple of years, we were slow functioning band. And then 98 was when Nick Brannigan became our drummer. And yeah, then we just like got the hook, you know, we just like the disease was in our blood and all we wanted was to tour, be on the road, be away from home. And
it seems like you guys did that for all of those 21 years.
Well, from 98 to 2016, so 18 years, we were consistently touring. Not hard like a Terror hard or some bands that really go 6 to maybe 9 months out of the year. We were a little bit less than that. I don't know if maybe we had a couple years that were 6 months, but I think we were more 4 months of the year on the road consistently.
It's definitely enough to be like, you know, your life kind of revolved around this band and music, you know.
Sure.
You know, as far as was there a certain point where it just kind of clicked and you guys were like, all right, we got to end this? Or what was that point, or why?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can't imagine being in a band that long and then having to have that conversation?
It
How
was,
did that go?
it was tough. And I wish I could go back and have it again. To be totally frank with you, it's like
Why is that?
the best way for the conversation to be handled. Now that I think about it, but we'd been going for a long time, and it was becoming clear that we didn't have the same sort of impact on the scene that we used to. Less and less kids were coming to shows. It just felt like maybe we were starting to wear our welcome out. We were all getting older. We were starting to, we weren't quite we just weren't kids anymore. Our drummer, Bobby, had started a family. He was really juggling the Bane world with some very real life responsibilities.
Yeah.
It was getting harder and harder for him to do. Same with Dahlbeck. He had a kid, he had a wife. And suddenly it was just becoming like not as easy to navigate to be on the road a lot. And I wasn't able to transition into like, oh, we'll just do it part-time. All I had known was Bane going hard, Bane being a very sort of goal-oriented band.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of did the, look, either we do this or we don't type of a thing. And that was an impossible situation to put those two boys in because they got fucking kids. They got mouths to feed.
Yeah.
Bane was like a professional band. So I kind of created a situation where we had to just call it. But we also saw the ability to do this thing in our last 2 years where we could kind of ride the idea of us breaking up out to its conclusion, meaning we would announce that Don't Wait Up was a final record, and we would sort of pack a lot of emotion into these final tours where we were going to get to go everywhere one last time and say goodbye.
Yeah.
And that certainly upped the interest again. Suddenly people were hyped to be around the band. Shows were starting to be very well attended again. And the record did very, very well for us. But then we had like signed our name on the dotted line. We couldn't get back on it.
So if you go back to that conversation that, I'm assuming you, Dahlbeck and Aaron and Zach had, what would be the change in the conversation now?
I would be way more able to compromise and able to sort of look at how fucking sad and lost I would feel with Bane completely removed from my life. And I would have been able to realize that there's a way to massage this so that everyone comes out happy.
Yeah.
Maybe we won't tour 3 tours a year, but fuck, every summer we still get to go to Grows Rock. And every winter we can still fly out and do a West Coast tour and play Chain and play Che and see our friends. And like, I didn't have to be so my way or the highway. I could have just realized how fucking bleak this would be.
Yeah.
Just like be more of a compromising person to say, all right, I get it. Maybe some years we can only do a couple of weeks, but they'll be the best weeks of that year. And
yeah.
I failed, man.
So would it be safe to assume that you, and obviously this is not like I guess it's a very straightforward. I would be safe to assume that you're like either we tour or we don't.
At that time, all I had known was Bane going at a certain pace.
Yeah.
I am a person who's has a lot of difficulty with change, with letting things go. Like my claws were sunk so deeply into Bane. It was such a part of my identity, my family, my ability to express myself, that I was just like a real all or nothing motherfucker.
Yeah.
And now I'm in a different place. I've got like, since then I've done 6 years of therapy. I've done some real introspection, and I realized where a lot of that stuff came from, my insecurities regarding change and regarding letting go, regarding allowing new chapters, new doors to open. I was afraid of all of that. Like Bane for me, dude, was like, it was like being on the run constantly, just always on the move, always feeling relevant, always in the moment. And I just couldn't see a way to sort of slow it down, It scared me. It felt like they were winning. It felt like I was like giving in to the people who were adulting and the people that were studying. And I was wrong. Like, it was a terrible attitude for me to have.
Yeah. I mean, and coming from the perspective of someone that's like, toured for, quite some time.
Yeah.
I definitely understand that, and that being said is that I can't imagine doing that for 21 years and then kind of ending. But you know, there's times where there was segments of my life where I was just on tour nonstop, and I was just like, exactly, it was kind of like running away. This was the only format I know how to control and understand myself and not have to be a, you know, a burden on life. You know, I was like, this is the only way I can deal with these emotions, you know? So there was definitely a moment where I was like, dude, no, fuck that, we're touring. But it was a very selfish way of touring, you know?
Same for me, man. Same for me. It was very selfish. It was very much about hiding from growing older, hiding from responsibilities,
Yeah.
hiding from financial stresses. Because when you're on tour, none of that shit exists. You know, it's like literally just get through the day, get to the show. Where are we staying?
And I think for me and my band, I just remember being like a lot of the times, you know, I think for the most part, you don't drink or do drugs, do you?
No.
So you see, Shabalba, we all did a lot of shit.
Yeah,
So so
yeah.
it got to a point where it was very unhealthy, and I was like, yo, we either gonna die, be in jail, so we gotta stop touring. But the one thing that, you know, when we stopped touring, I was like, I can't fucking let this go. I can't, you know. And it was just like, so I had that mindset. I was like, okay, either we're done or we tour. But then after, you know, we took like a year off, I was like, you know what, I still enjoy playing music, not necessarily for people, but I enjoy the people that are behind me, you know, my friends,
You
and like,
come to a decision where you guys were not going to be able to tour anymore. They said, look, we can't stay on the road, or you decided we can't stay on the road.
I think I recognize that it was a very unhealthy environment for us personally, you know, just because of the nature of who we are as human beings. I was like,
I see.
you know, we don't deal with emotions well, and it was very obvious that, you know, instead of dealing with our emotions, I wrote lyrics, and the rest of us drank and did a bunch of bullshit to the point where I was like, dude, this is unhealthy. But having that feeling, as far as, you know, having almost like an emotional roller coaster and being in a band, you know, and I could assume it would be the same for you guys, where you're like, okay, let's go, let's go. But you guys didn't, you know, we coped with it a different way. With you guys, I feel like you must have been in your head way too many times more than it's healthy. And
Possibly. That may be true.
like
Yeah,
taking a step back, like, are you able to recognize that now, or was that like,
that's interesting. You know, I don't know how much I've thought about how sort of mentally taxing it was, but it was, I just loved it more than I loved the alternative. I think I would have been, I'm more in my head now. I'm more in my head when I'm not on the road. Somehow being on the road made me feel relevant and alive in ways that I wasn't able to before or since. And like, it took a long time, Nate. Like, I was 25 when Bane started. I was 28 when we had started touring. So I had been waiting and really not dealing with a lot of my own bullshit for a lot of years. And finally, I had something that fit. I had like a band that felt like family. I had a band that sort of was on a mission.
yeah?
And I just loved it. I just sunk my fucking teeth into it and didn't let go.
I think it's very obvious in the sense of, like, you know, my favorite things from bands was always lyrics. I fucking
Yeah.
love lyrics. I love to see what people have to write about. I love to see what people have to express. And when, you know, I would sit there and I would Give Blood is probably one of my favorite records. Lyrically reading that, it was like, yo, this is very personal. This is very, like, this is not just some fucking gut, like, you know, whatever lyrics. It's like, this is something that's very thought out and written out. Um, you know, I'm assuming that was a huge outlet for you. How does that, you know, how did that come to be, as far as like going to be able to have some kind of outlet to write to now?
Well, I mean, now I have less. I mean, I have less of a sort of an immediacy towards something where I can express myself, put it into the world, and have the response that you would have, whether it's kids screaming the words back at you or kids coming up to you after the show and saying, hey, this song, this line, your lyrics really affect me. And that's a very nice thing to have in your life, to be validated, to have your own thoughts and your way of expressing them validated to you constantly is a very comforting, warm thing, to be told what you're doing matters and what you're doing resonates. Because when you're writing, you know the deal. When you're writing it onto the page, you have no idea where it's going to go. Does it work? Is it good? I never wrote a song and said, "Oh, this is perfect." I wrote them and hoped. I put them into the world. I figured I did the best that I could, and now we're going to see.
Yeah.
And I was lucky, like people responded positively to the lyrics. People have told me amazing things about what some of the lyrics have done for their lives personally. I'd never had that before. It was the first time I'd ever felt like anything that I did mattered.
Yeah.
And you get very fucking comfortable in that feeling. It can become your identity, your life. So what's the fuck? I write these things and suddenly there's a room full of kids screaming them. Some of them are crying. Like, it's hard to walk away from that. It's hard to trade. You don't trade up from that. It doesn't get better than that for somebody like me, this poor kid that doesn't have any education, that doesn't have any actual talents. Like, I found this one little thing that worked, and I wrote it out as long as I had any right to. 21 years. It's a ridiculous time to be in a hardcore band as an adult. I started the band at 25. I was a fucking adult.
Yeah, man, I can imagine that feeling being like irreplaceable. Like, there's times where you write lyrics and having a kid be like, yo, like this meant so much to me, but and you're watching kids kind of react to it and take a positive thing out of it, because the thing is, like, I've had the reaction was like, I'm not a fucking saint, but I am trying my hardest to be a better person, and to write that lyrically, it's like, it's so, for like, me being a hardcore kid, it's like, it's so cool to see someone be vulnerable and write these on paper. I know in the newest record, there was a song that was extremely personable that you spent years not writing about it. You wrote about it.
Yeah, not dealing with it. I spent my whole life not facing. I told 3 people in my life that I had been abused. That was not something that I even told a small circle of people. I told very, very few that I went through some fucked up shit as a kid. And even upon writing the song, I still wasn't facing it. I still did not understand the weight of what I had gone through.
At what point made you decide to put that on paper and put it out to the world?
Well, it was, as I touched on earlier, it was a part of this idea that we were doing one final record, and there was a feeling that I may never have an opportunity to have so many people care about what I have to say again. The idea of Bane is writing their farewell record came with, I don't want to say pressure, but just a realization that, wow, this could be it. I love writing lyrics. I loved what the lyrics meant to Bane as a band, and I wanted to not take the task lightly. So there was a ride. We were in Europe, and I was just sort of thinking of like, well, what can I say that's different or that's brave or that needs to be said? In almost in an abstract way, it kind of started as like, wouldn't it be funny or wouldn't it be crazy to write about that?
Yeah.
Literally nobody in the van, there's not a single person in Bane who are my brothers, know that I had been abused as a child. And I just, it kind of opened the door a little, and I just kept thinking about it until it started to feel like, fuck, you have to do this. This is the writing assignment. This is the thing. You have to put this down on paper because it's the toughest, it's like the toughest thing that you've ever tackled. And that is coupled with an idea that maybe this will help some kids. Maybe this will help some people feel heard. And like, I was at a time in my life where the embarrassment of having to admit that these things had happened to me, that I'd been abused, suddenly felt very small in comparison to, God, even if one kid out there suddenly feels a little less alone with his secret, this has to be done.
Yeah.
So I wrote it, but it was dark. I mean, it opened up a lot of questions, a lot of going back to like realizing that there's a lot about the abuse that I don't have the answers to, that I don't remember, you know, a lot of black spots
Yeah.
in my childhood that suddenly I was having to really fixate on, as opposed to staying a few steps ahead of, which I had been a fucking expert at. I spent my 20s and 30s never thinking that I was a victim or that I was a survivor or that I may be dealing with actual trauma. But somehow in writing that song, I started to have to go to some dark places and like be like, whoa, that was fucked up, or the way my family handled this was fucked up. There was a lot of very fucked up things that were unresolved.
Yeah.
And that coupled with me starting to feel like, I don't know if I'm going to survive the end of Bane. I may kill myself when all this ends. Like, I don't see a life without this. Made me, well, you know what happened is that Obamacare came through. Like, literally, suddenly I had insurance.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I did, like literally, I got the form that I had been accepted, and I went online and looked for therapists that dealt with depression and that dealt with childhood abuse. And found a therapist. Don't Wait Up isn't even out yet. Like, the record isn't out. Nobody knows about the song other than the band and the few people in my circle that I've shown the lyrics to. I find a therapist and tell her, I'm going to need help these next 2 years. Like, this song is about to come out. The abuse is about to be a regular part of my day to day. And the thing that I've loved more than anything else is coming to an end in 2 years. I need help. And she fucking saved me. She fucking saved my life. So now I'm at a place where I can talk about it, where I can even look back on the boy in the field that told the Bane guys, look, it's either all or nothing. And I see him differently. I see him as somebody who was scared, who was a victim, who was traumatized and needed help. The timing was wrong. I really believe if I had gone into therapy before, then Bane doesn't end, and I'm going to see you in like a few weeks, you know.
I guess going back to songs of that nature, you know, once it's said and done and it's out, playing that song, I guess I ask this because like I've definitely been there, having to relive this and sing it and see it on a record, see it being sold. Was that healthy or unhealthy for you?
I think it was healthy. One thing I did is that I made sure that I don't, in the lyrics themselves, like I kind of knew that there was that I could overshare here and make it that singing the song would be very, very difficult. And I didn't want to do that. So for the lyrics, I actually write a preface that explains the abuse and my grandfather and the things that me and my cousins and my little brother went through. And then I sing the song that could be viewed in a lot of different ways, that I know what it's about. But if you read those lyrics without the preface, you may not completely understand what I'm talking about. So in singing the song, I never directly address the abuse. I talk around it.
Yeah.
But it was a sad song. Like, musically, the song is very sad and very somber. And I'm forced to sort of really sing my fucking heart out. So it was always emotional. But what happened, Nate, is that, so I'm going to get emotional here thinking about it. What happened is that the record came out, the song came out, and when we would play it, has like a quiet intro, has like the song kind of comes in quietly. And you can hear a pin drop in the room, and I would just feel safe. I just felt like I was amongst people that understood, that wanted me to be okay. Like, this idea that punk and hardcore had been my family, that Bane was my brothers, was never more profound in the moment where I had to sing a song where I was confessing the story of childhood. And it always felt safe. It never felt like I was being judged or sniffed at. And just to be a part of a world like that, that our community has this sort of subliminal understanding that when somebody is, when like somebody's telling a speech and you can tell this speech is going to a place that is really special, and you can fucking hear a pin drop in the room, you know? Like sometimes it just overcomes a whole room of punk kids and they understand that something very special is happening here.
Yeah, man, it's a very vulnerable place and humbling to see you be able to do that, because it's like
So many vocalists, so many kids.
a lot of the times people dwell on it, and it's and for someone to, watching one of your favorite bands, it's like to be able to, without vulnerable, it's like, okay, like I can be okay, I'll be fine, I can talk about it, and
Yeah.
it's cool that you're vulnerable to do that, because like I think something like 5-6 years ago we wrote a song, and and the title of the song is what it was. It was a suicide note. And I remember, like, I wrote the song, put it out on record. I was like, I can't fucking play this. Like, I can't fucking, like, I don't want to sing this.
Of course.
And and we don't, because there's a lot of songs that are just like so dark that I was just like, I can't fucking relive this. And but that was at a time and place where I'll, when you're actively playing in a band, you're actively having to rethink this stuff to yourself. It's cool for you and I to talk about it some years later and be like, whoa, that was a time that I can reflect on, and was like, that's a time that I that's not me anymore, and be able to be like, okay, what's different for me then and now, and how can I deal with this emotion then? Because at the time when the record was, when you wrote your songs, and people are writing these songs and singing about it, having to relive it sometimes can be a very dark thing, mostly on the road. On the road where you're just like, fuck. And to hear you say, like, yo, the next 2 years, telling your therapist, the next 2 years of my life are going to be very hard to deal with. And I can only imagine a 10th% of what you had to deal with, because, what you did for 20x years, I was like, I wouldn't be, I don't understand how to deal with that. It's, so for me, it was like watching Bane come to an end and watching you put this stuff on paper. I was like, that's deep, that's hard, So, I mean, now that we're sitting here talking about it, I was like, as a peer, as a friend, as a fan, I'm just like, that's, to me, I was like, I gotta say that what you wrote and did is really fucking cool, because people like you influenced me to write lyrics and be vulnerable as well,
Yeah, I love that. Hell yeah, I mean, I like to think that you're writing the song act as a turning point, like getting those lyrics down, getting it onto paper, facing those emotions. Maybe that was one tiny step in being able to heal yourself. That if you don't get all those jumbled fucking ideas of rage and aloneness, if you don't get them collated and onto a piece of paper, they could just stay inside of you and haunt you. And somehow in the writing of it, you start to step away from it a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of it was that I didn't want to talk about it, so I wrote it on paper so I don't fucking talk about it and deal with it. And now it's easier to look back and realize that a lot of it was abuse, a lot of it was, self-inflicted, and now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, it's cool to deal with it and talk about it. But you spent years writing your emotions and thoughts onto paper. When the last Bane show, what did that next day feel like?
The next day felt wild. The next day felt like I was kind of amazed that I was alive, and that it wasn't as bad as I had been imagining it would be for years. For years, that was the day that I was more afraid of, is waking up and not being in Bane anymore. And I started preparing for it, like on the note, which is 11 years before we broke up. I wrote a song called End with an Ellipsis, which is starting to prepare for this band is not going to save you forever. This fucking has to end. Mm-hmm. So I had been low key wrestling with this idea that I'm not going to be able to be 60 years old and singing in Bane, and you have to get ready to let go of this. I'm already like deep into my 30s when I'm writing that song. So the next morning, the first thing that I felt was almost a relief to not have to wonder what it was going to feel like anymore, and to just be in it. And like, I had friends who, I had friends who'd flown in. There were friends in my room that had been there for those final shows. And I was surprised at this weird sense of almost relief of not having to think about it anymore. Because the day before, I still wasn't sure I was going to survive it. I still didn't know
Yeah.
if I wasn't going to just end up crying in the fetal position 2 songs into our last performance. I really did not know how this was going to play out. And it went fine, and we made it, and I was way stronger than I thought I was going to be able to be. And the next day, it was almost just like, whew, wow, we did it.
So I guess now, reflecting back and, how has it been since Bane has been done? And, a lot of people that play in bands for a very long time, that what if, that after, what happens after when something that you identified with for so long, what is that life like now? Like, what is that like?
Now, I mean, it's not as good as it was the next day, I'll tell you what.
So,
Tough now.
how are you doing now?
Huh?
How are you doing now that Bane's done?
Oh man, I don't know. That's a tough one to answer. That's hard. Dude, do you ever just get fucking frustrated that you can't scream through this quarantine, that you can't grab a mic and just fucking stomp around and scream? Does it ever like make you so angry that you want to punch a hole in the wall or smash your remote control into 1,000 pieces?
Yeah, every day.
Like I don't have a fucking outlet. Like somebody will annoy me. Like somebody will like have bad social cues and they'll say things that you can't believe they're saying, and I get so fucking mad. And
Yeah.
like I just get in the red in a way that I normally don't. And I've been realizing lately it's just because I have no fucking outlet. Like I ride my bike, maybe
Yeah.
I do a few push-ups, but there's nothing that is comparable to taking the mic stand up off the drum riser and saying, yo, what's up? There's nothing on this earth, and it's been robbed from me.
I think so. So I think, obviously COVID has taken its toll, but
Yeah.
I guess in more specific manner, like with Bane, after Bane, I know you have another band. Was that your kind of next kind of outlet for you, or is it something that like something that is it?
Ideally, I thought Antagonize was going to sort of like turn into something, and it was a lot of fun and it was cool, but it was constantly I was being reminded that this is not how I'm used to being in a band, that the way that they see things, the way that we sort of were motivated was just completely different than Bane. And at first that was kind of fun and exciting. It was like, this is kind of a crude analogy that I used a lot. It was like getting out of a 20-year long relationship and then fucking somebody new, fucking somebody different. And in the beginning, that's fun and exciting and thrilling. But after a while, you realize that's not the thing that I loved.
Yeah.
And all the differences start to offend you. They start to become a burden to me. And
Because you knew the nature of your bandmates and your friends and these people that turn into your family, and I definitely understand that because there'll be times where like you guys will probably get into like arguments and stuff, but you're like, oh yeah, whatever, we're fine, love you, dude. Could be
it was very different with Bane. Yeah, I mean, we had been a band so long, we just knew the buttons never to push. We just sort of tiptoed around each other's bullshit so expertly because we were all pretty volatile people.
Yeah. So I guess diving into, COVID-19 has forced us all to be at a standstill. And, people that are playing in bands, people in the music industry, venues, it is fucking difficult to deal with. I'm watching my friends, peers go into very dark places. And it's essentially because, a lot of people are like, oh, you can't let music or your job or what you do identify you. But this is a field of, I guess you could call it work, but that does identify us. And even just not going to shows, for people that are so involved in music, this was our outlet, and it's really hard and difficult to figure out how to deal with it. For you, how has COVID-19 affected you, and how are you dealing with it currently?
You know what, dude? Honestly, 80% is great. I'm doing well. I've started writing a novel. That's been really fun to do, to just like have a project aside from the music stuff that hopefully turns into something down the road, a creative outlet that I get to go to every single day. I've been trying to really be disciplined and write every day, which is something that I've never been good at. So that's been amazing. And I'm healthy, and I have a small circle of friends that we're go on bike rides, or we fucking go to the movies. Not go to the movies, but I go to a friend's house and we watch movies. So like I'm doing a lot better than a lot of people, but there is a sense of something missing, that community that is all based around live music. Say what we want about the culture of punk and hardcore, but all of it spurs off of those loud guitars and those drums and kids screaming their heads off. And having that removed after having not known anything else since I was 15 years old is crazy. You know, the longer this goes on, the more frustrating and hopeless it becomes. Because, like, I do believe that Bane would have done whatever we had to do to come and raise money for Chain. You know, there was talk of, like, I think Unbroken was maybe going to do like some low key barbecue show. We might have played some songs for that. Like, there were opportunities for me to maybe reconnect with how much I miss Bane and be able to sing those songs and be amongst those boys again. And we can't even discuss it, you know? Not only can we not discuss it, we can't even project for like, oh, maybe down the line. This is so endless and so bleak that it just feels, it's exhausting to even think about it. Just waiting and waiting. And now what, we're 10 months in, 11 months in, just this sense of waiting for the thing that we love to come back to life and having no idea if and when it will ever be normal again that's bleak. But other than that, I'm doing well. I'm reading and I'm writing and I'm crushing movies and I'm like doing the things that I love. And I'm a person who's fine on my own. I thrive when I'm in my room doing my own thing. But yeah, it's just fucking dark. And the thing that I realize is how quickly I get short with people. I just want to fucking smash things and scream at people, how can you be this stupid? And I just realized it's because I miss the outlet.
Yeah.
I miss antagonize. I just miss having a band and having songs and just being able to be up there. I don't even care if kids like it or are singing or dancing. For me, it did something for my own well-being to just grab a microphone and be able to scream into it.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like you're staying productive in a way that's, you know, in a healthy way, you know, and that's awesome because, you know, there's a lot of people that are dealing with it very differently. For me, doing these Q&As and live streams has been kind of an outlet for me. So, you know, thank you.
Was the ball practice at all? You guys haven't gotten together at all? There's no playing music?
We did like a live stream record release thing where we played the record and played a few songs. And that was the last time we played, but that was back in May. So since then we haven't done anything. You know, luckily we talk every day and we, you know, but it's just like right now it's like, what's the point of practicing or playing or doing anything? It's also there's also this fear of like, you know, like Brian's family, both of his parents and his uncle got COVID, and his uncle passed away actually from it. So it's just this like nature of just like trying to be extremely careful, just because we do have elders in our life.
Absolutely.
You know, I haven't been able to see my grandmother and mother just because like I am around people, and I've been around people that have, you know, that have had COVID. So I'm just like, oh God, you know, just it's this constant mind fuck of just like, you know, sometimes when I say fuck it, I want to be negligent, just let's go, let's fucking do something. And then there's times where like, dude, all right, I gotta be careful. You know? I'm just like, fuck this thing, you know. But you know, I think everybody's dealing with it their own way. I just hope people are dealing with it in a productive and positive way, you know.
Yeah, I've been trying for sure. Back in April, I told myself there's no way I can come out of this with nothing. I have to do something creative. So I just started writing a story, and we'll see how that goes.
Awesome. So a couple more questions before we go. You know, up until this November 3rd, I was just like, we're fucked for another 4 years. We're gonna be fucked for another 4 years. This is gonna be president, and now it looks like it's gonna sway in the people's direction of
Yeah.
where we have some kind of
Yeah.
stability. Um,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts and emotion on this presidency election?
It was funny. It was funny talking to you and seeing how emotionally engaged you were was amusing to me.
Dude, it was like 3 days. I'm like, what the fuck? What's going on, dude?
How deeply upset and nervous you were. And I have some friends. We got together the night before the election, and people were feeling pretty pessimistic about things. They really did not seem to believe that Trump was going to get voted out. And I was the complete other side, to the point where I was almost naive in that I thought there was going to be an overwhelming, sweeping rejection of this man, and that it wasn't even going to be close.
But it's close.
It was close, and I was wrong and a little bit embarrassed. But the more that I thought about it, the more it sort of, I realized how silly I was, how stupid it was for me to expect a big portion of this country to wake up. I thought about like the dumb fuck people that I've met in my lives. Their minds don't change. You don't talk to a racist and enlighten them. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like how silly it was for me to think that half of the world was going to wake up and be like, oh God, this guy, he's been such a mess. There's a big portion of this country who like him for exactly who he is, that are not offended by him because he's a moron or he's inarticulate or he's a bully or he's a narcissist. That's not how they judge success. So I'm very glad that he lost. I think that's huge. But I wasn't white knuckling it the way you are. That's why I asked you if you had a family, because I watch it more from like as a fascinated spectator, as someone who's interested in the experiment that we're doing here in America, but I'm very unaffected by it. Like I don't have a job, I don't have a house, I don't have a family, I don't have a 401k. Things can break in either direction for me, and I stay the same.
Yeah.
I didn't like having a stupid president. That seems strange to me.
Yeah, I was like, this is, I mean, for the most part, I never gave a shit about politics.
Me neither.
I've always been like, I play music, I'm a blue collar worker, I work, and I don't think beyond my fucking four walls,
Yeah.
And this is the first year where like, I'm watching the city I live in fucking burning to the ground. I'm watching, I live, one city down is Orange County, Huntington Beach, where it's a very pro-Trump area.
Sure.
It's like these interactions, and it's just like unstable interactions where I'm like, dude, our country has gone full fucking idiot mode, like, and it's affecting me in the sense where like I can't turn away from it. I can't turn it the fuck off.
Yeah. You could not hide from it these past 4 years.
I can't turn it off. And on top of that, like, we're in the middle of a pandemic that's just like financially it's taking its toll on people in the music industry. And it's just like, dude, I don't even care if it's fucking Biden. Like, I just need a fucking president who can literally just talk with some sense and not just these off the wall emotions of just like, yo, man, your job is to literally cool it down, balance it out, not these extreme sides of emotions. I rather, like, if people want to be in the middle, fuck it, I don't care, but just some kind of stability where it's, I can ignore it and stand away from it,
Yeah, no, I feel you, man. I'm going to tell you honestly, you're not going to like to hear this, but there was a part of me that would not have minded another 4 years of this madness, because I think we're not broken enough. I think we need to become more enraged by the ideas that he's pushing, and we need to be more split to understand that there isn't a large degree of this country who are fucking scary, who are fucking dangerous and hold destructive beliefs, and that Trump was the first time where that stuff became legitimized. I remember 4 years ago that things like Breitbart and these extreme right-wing ideas were considered crackpot. They were just considered ridiculous.
Yeah.
He normalized them in a way that is enraging to us, obviously, as punk kids. But beyond that, it became fascinating to me, like seeing the way people took to the streets after George Floyd made me think, wow, maybe we're getting somewhere. But
Yeah.
the only way we're going to get somewhere is if we become more offended, if we become more upset. We
Yeah.
can't, things aren't going to change if we're comfortable. So
Yeah.
there was a part of me that was like, you know what, if he wins again, we could be brought to some very interesting places as far as the resistance.
Yeah.
But then
it's
I'm my mother's son, and my mother would be so deeply offended by this fucking moron that I would root for like good. Suddenly Biden became the voice of good versus evil, and I wanted the morning, I wanted Saturday where people were dancing in the streets and where the newscasters were smiling, they were so happy. I wanted that moment.
Yeah.
Just because I'm an empathetic person, even though I do believe that this country is a fucking mess and it needs to.
I do believe that. And it's funny you say that because I do have a friend who's a Trump supporter. And I was like, you know, fuck it. Let him win, dude. Like, let it all burn down. Like, fuck it. Burn it down. Burn it all down. Fuck it, dude.
I just feel like if he wins again, we get pushed to some real interesting places.
Oh, yeah. I was just like, I'm going to, oh, man. I would just like start thinking, fuck this place. I'm going to burn Orange County down. Burn that fucking place down. Tear it all down. I don't give a fuck. But it's very, at this point, you know, I'm an adult now. I'm just like, all right, I need to make sure I have some kind of insurance. I need to actually look at what these laws are because it is going to affect me. You know, I'm just like, all right, I got to be civil, you know?
When you got a kid, I mean, when you got a kid, you want to see a world that she can grow into that you feel good about.
Exactly.
Getting rid of him is step one towards that.
But, you know, I forgot. There's some comedian I watched a couple years ago where, you know, when I went from Bush to Obama, and they're like, you know, like the first year you see people like, why isn't this changing? Why isn't that changing? It's like you give someone a fucking broken car, you know, you got to give them time to fix the car. Right now, Trump didn't even give Biden a car, so you know, so I'm just like, all right, the next 4 years, you know, I can't expect it to move in a very fast, progressive way. But at least hopefully we can hope for some stability in the sense of emotions in this.
We won't have a bully, you know. There just won't be this idea that there's just a bully who's running things, a dude who gets off on making other people feel small. It's just like the worst personality trait. It will go down as one of the great mysteries of all of our lives that enough people voted that idiot in based on what we knew about him.
I can't wait to see the movie.
Dude, it's going to be 10-hour miniseries, man. I can't wait. Like the tell-all books that are going to come out are going to be insane.
Dude, the Netflix already probably started on the series.
I can't wait for Ken Burns to just give us 15 fucking hours of Trump. Sick.
Oh man. Well, brother, dude, thanks for joining us today. I am
man. Saying about all the LA homies, I miss all you guys. I miss all you.
I hope you're doing well, and hopefully I'll come visit soon. But before we go, any shout outs to the world?
Just a chain, man. Just chain reaction. Just know they're in all of our hearts. We're going to make a t-shirt. We're trying to find the flyer for the first time we played there. Yeah, what was it called before it was chain? Public Storage?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Dude.
The first couple of days, the day we played with that band, Gehenna. Remember that band?
Yeah, Mike Cheese.
Scary.
Rock
Dead played too, and we're hoping to find the flyer for that gig, put it on a t-shirt.
I booked Gehenna once, and I was like, hey, like, what do you need for it? Like, payment? He's like, oh, just give me some weed.
That was it.
I was like, you don't need gas money or something like that? He's like, no, just weed.
How long you been booking gigs for?
Dude, since I was like 15.
Damn. God
damn. I'm 32 now. Yeah, way too long.
So this is like a double whammy for you. You don't get to do your band, and you don't just get to like be a part of the machine, be a part of like booking a show.
You know, a lot of it, you know,
it feels like at the end of the night when the floor has been swept and everybody's gone, what it feels like to be like, oh, that went really well. You know, like, you know.
Here's the thing with booking shows, you know, it's been over 15 years now, I believe.
Yeah.
It never turned into like some kind of like workhorse or like business, because I literally just booked shit I wanted to see. And it was only for like friends, you know, and I never, you know, a lot of our friends, the people that do business in hardcore, like kind of made it a career. And I never did that because then I would take things way too personal, you know? So it got to the point like, I only book hardcore shows and friends bands. And it's cool because like now there's like a younger group of kids that are like booking shows, and I'm like, yeah, dude, here you go. Here's the fucking keys, dude, and it's awesome, you know.
That's so
And
sick.
and that's the one thing I never let it get to that point, because then you start, for me to like try to make it a business and rely on it. I was like, you can't do that with hardcore. It's not a business. And like hardcore bands that do survive on it, it's like they're literally touring and touring and touring, you know? So, you know, again, my hearts go out to bands that like do have to tour around year round, you know, to just to fucking put some food on the table. But yeah, you know, it's been, you know, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, hopefully next year, man. Hopefully we bounce back and things will get back to normal. We'll see.
Uh, well,
Nate,
bro,
fun. Thanks for having me on.
of course, dude, good talking to you. I'll see you soon.
You will. Take care.
Peace.